Thanks for joining. Let's
Thanks for
start
having
off.
me.
Obviously, we talk all the time about Diego, and there's not much more we can say. But I guess one thing I wanted to hit upon is he clearly, from the first moment I saw him at Media Day, he looks like he's a little lighter, a little leaner, not quite as thick. Why did he decide to go that direction? I mean, usually you think you want your inside linebacker bulked up, but he seems to have slimmed down a bit.
Yeah, speed's the name of the game. You know, the game's obviously evolving. He's done a great job getting himself in the best shape that he possibly can be to play as fast as he can be. And believe me when I say it, he hasn't lost any violence. That's still there. We're ready to roll.
Well, so, I mean, he's listed at 240. Do you think he's not 240, or is it just a different looking 240?
He's lost a few pounds, but he's right around that. You know, he usually fluctuates somewhere between 236 and 239 right now. So it's not like he's lost a ton of weight since then. But when we got here, you know, he was 255. So he is committed to his diet. He's committed to training the right way. Scott Marr's done a phenomenal job, our nutritionist. Scott Marr's done a phenomenal job with him. Just educating him on proper diet. And I think what you're seeing is he's lost a few pounds, but what he does have is in the right places.
And so has it improved his speed and quickness?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
How have you seen that in preseason? Were any examples? I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, in the spring, I mean, that was the main thing with us was we wanted to get him down to a weight where he could play a lot faster. You know, we had, you know, and to be honest with you, Wags, we had two scouts in here the last 2 days that talked about they have one guy on their roster. Both teams said the exact same thing. They got one guy on their roster that's over 230 pounds. You have to be able to run and cover at the linebacker position now. And the faster you are, the better you are. And generally, the lighter you are, the faster you are. So just getting it in the right spots, losing a couple pounds here or there can be all the difference. It's a game of inches. And he's done everything we've asked him to do to put himself in the best light possible, be able to play with speed, be able to cover tight ends, running backs when we need him to be able to do those things.
so do we know what kind of 40-yard dash time Diego runs?
I have no idea.
You don't seem to care.
I do not. If he's running 40 yards on defense, we're probably in trouble. So
What about you guys do the explosion stuff, the 10-yard, the 20 yards? How's he doing that?
To be honest with you, I haven't seen any times on any of that stuff. I go basically off the naked eye with those things. And I know that he's in the front of the pack. So of the guys we got, he's up in the front. So that's a good thing.
Okay. You talking about guys on defense, you mean?
Yeah. When we run conditioning, he runs with the big group. So defense, he runs with the mid group, excuse me. So he runs with the linebackers, the B-backs, the Raiders, all those guys, they run together. And he does a great job. He's up in front, leading the pack right in the middle, from the first rep all the way to the last rep. And we do a lot of reps.
Right. Well, so the reason I asked is I do know that NFL scouts are interested in him. And obviously we all can see from his play that he's a legit bona fide NFL prospect. But when it comes nut cutting time, they're going to run him in 40s and shuttle hurdles. And I was just wondering, do you think he measures up to what the NFL scouts would want in terms of how he runs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when the time comes for him to do those things, he's going to train at those specific drills. So he's going to know, you know, obviously the combines, the 40s, the pro shuttle, the L test. He's going to train at that stuff when the time comes to get to that. Right now, his main focus is beating Marshall. And I can tell you, if I bring anything up outside of beating Marshall, he's not happy with me. But when the time comes for that, he'll be ready. I promise you that.
So we talk about a guy like Diego, who's an All-American Athletic Conference, two-time All-American Athletic Conference selection. And you say going into his senior year, you know, how can he be better? But I know Diego's not satisfied, and I know you're not satisfied as a coach. What have you all identified going into this preseason that Diego could do better, and has he been working to meet those expectations?
There's a couple schematic things that I don't want to get into and give any secrets away or things like that. But in terms of just body positioning, we really worked hard on his shuffle this year, just making sure we're efficient movers in the box. Nobody's played a perfect game at inside linebacker in the history of football. It's impossible. So there's always things on every single rep that you can work to improve on. And the thing that I love coaching about him is that he's always thirsty for more knowledge, ways to improve. We've worked on reformulating his shuffle a little bit, working on those things. Obviously, space play, playing in space, getting the weight more out on the balls of his feet, shoulders out over his toes consistently. So basically, a lot of movement skills has been basically what we're trying to work with him on outside of the scheme stuff.
So obviously, by this point of his career, he's a marked man, and teams are going to be accounting for him as best they can. But I still sense that he could have a kind of an even blow-up season beyond what he's done so far, like the kid Xavier Collins at Tulsa did. I mean, he was a good player, and we all knew it. But then his senior year, he was just lights out and turned himself into a first-round draft pick or whatever he was. Do you sense that Diego could be in line for the best season of his career?
Absolutely. I think he'd tell you the same thing. He's continued to grow in terms of the scheme, knowing more and more. And knowledge is power. When you can play, when you know what you're doing to the nth degree, you can play even a little bit faster. And like I said earlier, the speed's the name of the game. I'd be shocked, Bill, if he doesn't have an absolutely phenomenal season. I expect him to dominate this year.
So let's look at the Will spot. With the departure of Tuatelli, it now appears that three-way competition is down to two with Will Harbor and Johnny Hodges, who we just had on. Why don't you tell me where we are there? I mean, are you close to making a decision amongst those two, or you still got a ways to go?
Yeah, both those guys have been outstanding. Been really pleased with the way they've gone about their work throughout the summer. Talking with Coach Fitz, coming in, watching workouts, all that type of stuff, seeing everything that they're doing. They did over the summer. Just really impressed with them. They're in excellent shape. Testament to Coach Fitz and his staff getting that done. And this fall camp, both those guys they've been exceptional. I mean, they really have played at a high level, and I have high expectations for them both right now, and I don't see that changing. In terms of naming a starter, not quite ready to do that yet, but I know that we've got two phenomenal options at the will linebacker position that are going to make Navy fans proud.
So I sense that they're slightly different type of players. Could you maybe talk about each and what each of them brings to the table? Maybe what their differences are between the two.
They're a little bit different, but not too much, to be totally honest with you. They've both been extremely productive. They both are fast. They both can run, can change direction, use their hands well, have the ability to play in space, play in the box, cover receivers at times, cover tight ends, cover running backs. Both have been very, very productive. Johnny is a little taller than Will, and Will's a little heavier than Johnny. But that's about really it in terms of those things. They both value what we value, is playing with effort, attitude, and toughness, and doing it at an elite level. And that's what's given them the opportunity to be where they are and have the opportunity to potentially start game one versus Marshall.
So obviously we all know that you would prefer not to have Diego come off the field too much, but let's say he got nicked up or he lost his cleat and had to run off the field, or his helmet came off. Would it be fair to say at this point you'd probably put in either Hodges or Harbor, whichever was not in the game at will, first, or is there a backup at Mike that would be the next up behind Diego?
Yeah, all three of those guys can play both spots. And then we got a couple guys behind them that can play both spots as well. That's been an emphasis for us is trying to dual train guys so we can make sure that we have the best two on the field at any given time. And whatever we have available in terms of if the helmet pops off, a cleat pops off, an injury, needing to get a drink, anything like that, we're committed to making sure we got the best two guys out there.
So let's just separate the positions for now as far as two deep. And let's just say Harbor and Hodges are 1-2 some way at will. Who is fighting to be the listed number 2 on the depth chart at Mike behind Diego?
Yeah, the listed number 2 on the depth chart, the guys fighting for that are Marcus Blazard, Kyle Jacobs, and Chasen Buckner. So those guys are all battling for that spot right now, doing an awesome job. Love coaching those guys. And I've seen a ton of growth from Chasen Buckner from his freshman year to his sophomore year so far. And then the other 2 guys are freshmen that have come in and really impressed me with the way that they run around and play football. Their knowledge is getting there where we need them to get. We've got a week left to continue to progress them for Marshall. But I think you're going to see those guys all play some meaningful snaps for us this season.
So going into August training camp, Terrell Adams was listed 3rd on the depth chart at inside linebacker. When Tuateli was here, clearly that wasn't the case because it was him and Hodges and Harbor. Is Terrell Adams still with your position group?
Yeah, Terrell's still with us. He's a little banged up right now. So going into the first game, we won't have him available. But he's been in every meeting. He'll make an impact for us this season.
And a guy that Coach Newberry mentioned when I was talking to him the other day after practice was another freshman named Tyler Fletcher.
Oh, yeah. He's in the mix, too. Now, he's playing the will linebacker position for us, but he's absolutely in the mix. He's having an outstanding summer camp here.
Okay. So can you kind of, if you were explaining this to your average fan who isn't a football expert, how would you say that the Will and the Mike positions are different?
Sure. To be honest with you, it's grown to the point where there's not too much difference. They're both going to play in the box. They're both going to play out of the box at times. The Mike for us is a guy that controls a lot of the calls pre-snap. So that's probably the biggest difference schematically. When we recruit, probably the biggest thing when we're looking at recruits is if we're going to take a guy that's just a Mike linebacker, he's got to have the size to potentially grow into a Raider or a defensive end. When we go into the recruiting piece of it, we're looking probably at bringing in more guys that we think have the potential to play will linebacker and then move them over to Mike linebacker. It used to be that the will played more in space, but that's really not the case anymore with the more open sets that offenses are getting into. So they both have to have the ability to play in the box and play in space, be able to cover running backs, tight ends, be able to blitz off the edge in the middle, be able to key in the box as well. So that the body type that we look at is maybe a little different in the recruiting, but the skill set is very similar.
How different is it from this last year to this year as far as being able to put in schemes and be face-to-face with these guys? I mean, is it ridiculous?
Yeah, I mean, last year was just a totally different animal than anything I've ever experienced. And I know, Coach Niamat, you guys have met with him, and he's talked about that quite a bit. I know Coach Newberry has as well. Last year was just a year that was just very, very different than anything we've ever experienced before. Hopefully we don't have to go back and experience anything quite like that again. So this year, just, it feels like we're back to playing our brand of football, the way that we know how, the way that has been incredibly successful here. And it's exciting to see the guys come over here every day. I think all of us play and coach with a little bit more gratitude in our hearts than we probably did before last season, to be honest with you.
And Diego only wanted to talk about Marshall. So you're game planning for Marshall without giving away secrets. What kind of problems does that offense present?
Oh shoot! I mean, they're talented. They're talented. They won a lot of games. They've got an excellent offensive coordinator that puts them in a lot of very good schematical plays that present challenges all over the field. Quarterbacks returning. He's a heck of a player. The running backs, the second leading running backs coming back. They got 4 of their 6 top receivers coming back, including the tight end, and 3 of 5 on the O-line. So if you can find a hole there, let me know, and I'll make sure I relay that to Coach New. But we know we're going to have our hands full with them week 1, and we're doing everything in our power to make sure they're going to have their hands full with us.
Talk about the competition at inside linebacker. I think we all know Diego Fagot is probably going to start. So that leaves one other position, the will linebacker spot. Why don't you talk about the competition that's happening there?
First off, I'm just blessed to be in a position that I'm in, but we have a bunch of depth at the linebacker position, which is really nice this year. And we're both just really excited to get an opportunity to play, me and Will Harbor. And whoever it is, I think it's going to be a great year for both of us, regardless of the outcome. But we're just both really getting excited for the season, getting ready for next Saturday.
So with regard to you and Will Harbor, how would you say you all are different? What do you feel you bring to the table that perhaps he doesn't? I know physically he might be a bit bigger than you. He looks kind of like Diego with the 240, 245 range. But I mean, just kind of tell me how maybe perhaps you're different inside linebackers.
Oh, Will's a terrific player. He's a beast. I mean, short, stocky guy, really physical, and he's great at stopping the run, and he's really fast too. I might have a little more reach in him, a little more height, but he's got all the tangibles that make a great linebacker, and we're definitely excited about how I'm going to do and how he's going to do too.
So as the two of you, Will and yourself, are both relatively inexperienced, how much are you learning from Diego Fagot, who's pretty much a 4-year starter, although only 3 years at that position because he played Raider as a freshman?
Diego's a great role model. I mean, he helps us out every way we can. Like when he sees something, he says something, gives us encouragement, offers us like guidance. It's great having him like in our position in our meeting room. So we love having him around.
So for those who are, maybe not football, junkies and coaches types, what is the difference in your view between the Sam and the Will linebackers?
Do you mean the Mike and the Will linebacker?
I mean, the Mike and the Will. My fault. My bad.
In my opinion, the Will just has a little more coverage responsibilities. We're not going to be having the Mike play a vertical, so the Mike's not going to be having to carry someone downfield, like guard or receiver downfield, whereas the Will, on some occasions, will have to. But there's not that much difference. I mean, the run fits are essentially the same. Size-wise are the same, and speed-wise are pretty close too, but just maybe a little bit different when you have to coverage receivers.
And in Navy system, and really it's almost most defenses work this way. The inside linebackers tend to make a lot of the tackles. That's just the way it works. If you go back and look at the list of leading tacklers for Navy over the last 15 some years, the bulk of them have been inside linebackers. It's designed that way. Can you talk about that responsibility of they tell D linemen to keep blockers off you so you all can run free and make plays, which means you can't be missing tackles?
I think it just comes down to everyone doing their job. I mean, the D line does their job and the linebacker does their job. It might just so happen that the linebackers make more tackles, but we're not going to put more pressure on ourselves to make open tackles. It just naturally happens. We're just grateful the D line plays so hard the way they play and creates gaps for us to fill. And then that the secondary is good enough at coveraging and leveraging the ball. So if it does get outside, we can just run out and get it. So it just comes down to everyone doing their job.
So do you sometimes think about how far you've come from being, a lacrosse player, joining football? And then if I'm correct, when you first came aboard, weren't you a striker?
No, when I came aboard, I've been Will since the day one. But I definitely like to reflect and see how far I've come. It was just such an honor to be able to like run out and wear my jersey last year on a game day with really little expectations, and now to see where I am at in my position, it's really cool. And I often forget about that and always have to just recall how grateful and lucky I am just to be where I am. So I reflect on that a lot. I'm going to start reflecting on it more pretty often, I'd say.
Am I correct in recalling that because of the special scheme that Coach Newberry used, you started the Army-Navy game?
Yes, sir.
Can you talk about that? You played pretty well in that game.
Thank you. It was a great experience. Nerve wracking, but I mean, my teammates and coaches put trust in me and drew up a great scheme that I was comfortable in. And ultimately, we played pretty well, decent. I was just grateful that people believed in me, and once my opportunity came, I just made the most of it. Tried my best. That's all that matters.
So being a local guy, I mean, last year was your first year with Navy football and fans could not be in the stands. So here you are, a local guy, and all your family and friends that would love to come see you play could not do so. Were you looking forward to that, having, people that family, friends, supporters in the stands to cheer you on?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's always fun when their fans are there. It gets louder, more intense. And I can't wait for my family and friends to come see me play. I mean, there's only a couple more opportunities for the rest of my life that they'll have. So it means a lot for me when my family's there, and I know it means a lot for them. So I'm really excited for this upcoming season where they'll be at almost every game.
So I was talking to Coach Newberry yesterday, and he said, it's to be determined whether it be a 3-man rotation at the inside linebacker positions or 4-man, waiting to see. But I mean, he indicated that everyone has to be able to play both positions. That obviously we know they don't want to bring Diego off the field very much if they can avoid it. But if he gets nicked up or needs a break for some reason, somebody's got to run in there and do it. If you end up, having to play over at the mic, can you do it?
Yeah, I believe in my abilities. Whenever my name's called, I'll be ready for it. So we're not too worried about that. We get a ton of reps at every position, go over calls and meetings, stuff like that. So that's the least of our worries.
And last for me, can you talk a little bit about Coach Volker, your position coach? I mean, he's, brought in here by Coach Newberry, who he worked with at Kennesaw State to oversee the inside linebackers, which Coach knows is a very, very important position in the scheme he runs. Can you talk about working under Coach Volker and much you've been able to learn in the short time you've been at the position?
Yeah, well, first off, like every position's incredibly important on our defense. I don't think we'd get any credit if it weren't for our D line. But Coach Volker's a great coach. I've learned so much from him and his guidance. He's taught me so much just about technique, shuffling, scheme, pre-snap reads. I've learned more about football under him in a year than I've learned in my entire life. So he's one of the best coaches I've ever seen. He gets the most out of his players. He knows when to get us like fired up, knows when to talk to us in like a nice manner. And I'm just blessed to have him as my coach, because I don't know if I would have come as far as I have if it wasn't for him.